One kind of opposition to dualism is to then turn again to this question of the relationship between the psychological and the physical, and to argue the exact opposite, to deny everything that dualism has said. And this position, I'll first leave space for an adjective here, then is a kind of materialism. I would say that what the human being is part of the natural world. The natural world is a complicated physical system, so therefore the human being simply is a complicated physical system, right? It's a complicated arrangement of matter. We can take all of the chemicals and show how all of the various chemical compounds come into being, and the human being there is just a whole series of chemical compounds with very impressive and complicated properties that have come into being as a result of those compounds. But if we're talking about the psychological is then not anything over and above or different than the material system that gives rise to it. Instead, what we will say is the reason why we as human beings have a complicated psychological life, that we can do all of these things here, is because we have a very complicated brain. We have a large brain, but the brain is a material system. It's made up ultimately of chemicals in various complicated patterns. And so what we call psychological phenomena are byproducts or offshoots of underlying physical products. And so the adjective that I want to put in here is the word reductive. And that is to say that we should understand the human being as a material system, and only as a material system. That is to say, in terms of underlying physical properties, all of these things that we call psychological properties can be explained in terms of and reduced to a description in terms of underlying physical properties. So we don't ultimately, when we have it all worked out, the full account of what it is to be a human being, ever need to use any of these words anymore. Instead, a full description of a human being will simply be a very complicated description of various material systems in process here. So what we will then say here is the psychological is simply, that might not be the best word there since it's not simple, but it is ultimately only a manifestation of, or a byproduct of the underlying physical. And that is ultimately only, right, physical properties are real. What we then can say about the psychological is that they are, and this is a moderately technical piece of terminology, the psychological properties are merely what we will call epiphenomena. The real phenomena are physical property, and the psychological are just epiphenomena, or just derivative phenomena that are just along for the ride but really aren't doing anything or contributing anything to the process.